All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Welcome to another 15 Minutes with Beeswax. Just as a friendly reminder, if you do have any questions during the course of the session, please use that Q&A function in that lower right-hand corner. And let's dive right into our Programmatic 101 session with 15 Minutes with Beeswax, a quick open and private programmatic buying overview. So if you've been in any of these sessions before, you probably know me. My name's Albert. I work on the product marketing team here at Beeswax, and with me here today is Sukai Chen, Senior Product Manager of the apps team at Beeswax. So if you're familiar with the Buzz UI and you like the features you use, Sukai is a major driving force behind those. So let's dive right in and talk about what we'll be covering today. Today, we'll be talking about a quick open versus private buys overviews before digging into some of the pros and cons associated with those various buys. From there, we'll have Sukai talk about Beeswax's new private deal workflow and some of the work that we've been doing recently to make managing private deals easier, including a quick demo of our new features, before closing with a Q&A. So let's talk about the various deal types that we have. This is not an exhaustive list. Remember, this is a 101, so we're going to try to keep things high level where we can. But suffice to say, starting with the open marketplace, what is an open marketplace buy? Well, fairly straightforward. It's not exclusive. Anyone can bid as long as you have work with a DSP and they have an SSP, or they work with SSPs that receive impressions. So with regard to private deals, really the difference between open and private buys is the deal ID. And if you're not familiar with the deal ID is just a number that functionally acts as your auction ticket, right? Like the entry admission ticket to a private auction. So with regard to the private deal types that we'll be talking about today, the two that we're talking about are going to be your private marketplace as well as programmatic guaranteed deals. So the private marketplace is probably the most common type of private deal and stands like a step up above the open marketplace. It is semi-exclusive, and frequently you'll either see a one-to-many or many-to-many relationship between sellers and buyers. So it could be one seller, many buyers, or many sellers and many buyers within the same private marketplace. But these are pretty standard auctions typically, so buyers are not obligated to bid within a private marketplace. On the other hand, this is in stark contrast to programmatic guaranteed, which is exclusive and does have a one-to-one relationship between sellers and buyers. And it's not really an auction because buyers are obligated to bid when inventory is sent to them through a programmatic guaranteed deal. Frequently, you'll see requirements of contractual requirements, that is, of 95% bid rate or higher when it comes to programmatic guaranteed. So let's dig into some pros and cons. Starting with pros and cons of the open marketplace, again, this is the standard entry point into programmatic. So what you'll see in the open marketplace is the fact that most of the inventory on the open marketplace is actually just available at a lower price point than private buys would be. It's also plentiful. There's a lot of ad space on the internet. So assuming that you have no issues with, assuming that you don't have extremely restrictive targeting criteria, odds are good that you'll have no issues with delivery. That said, because the internet is a big place, because there's a lot of content on the internet, some of that content is objectionable. So brand safety can definitely be a concern in the open marketplace. Sometimes if you're a brand or represent a brand that cares about what sort of content they're next to, and most brands do, definitely something to keep an eye out on when working with the open marketplace. Second thing to know about the open marketplace is that fraud is prevalent in the open marketplace, and this is something that the ad industry has been actively working to combat. But given the massive amount of dollars that flow through the digital advertising industry, it's no surprise that the bad actors and fat fraudsters have followed. So there are ways around these cons and brand safety cons. There are some ways around these brand safety concerns, though, and the big one is really that most people will choose to work with a brand safety vendor such as an IAS or a Double Verify or a Moat, or you can go all the way in like Chase famously did back in 2017, where they famously created a 5,000 site allow list, which they gradually expanded over time. But most people aren't Chase and most people don't need to do that. So let's talk about the private marketplace. The nice thing about the private marketplace is that it directly addresses the concerns of the open marketplace, in the sense that buyers do have more control over where their impressions are placed, because oftentimes one thing about the open marketplace that I forgot to mention is that you don't always know where your inventory will be running. On the private marketplace, you generally have a pretty good idea of which sites are in that private marketplace. So as a result, brand safety is typically built in. That said, it's worth noting that in the private marketplace, impressions aren't guaranteed, and there's a risk of under-delivery because of the fact that private marketplaces are just more expensive than open marketplace inventory. So sometimes you get outbid all the time, sometimes you just don't want to pay that much for the inventory. So a pretty standard strategy that a lot of folks will use is they'll create a nice mix in their media plans between open marketplace and private marketplace. And what that really does is you get the benefits of the private marketplace, which is the premium placements and the ability to be seen where you want to be seen. Whereas when you have run line items and budget through the open marketplace, what you get is a lot more scale. Because it's cheaper, it brings down the effective CPM, or the cost per thousand impressions, down a little bit to help you hit your goals and continue to see success and higher return on investment in the programmatic marketplace. So that's the PMP, the private marketplace, and the open marketplace. Let's quickly talk about programmatic guaranteed. So with programmatic guaranteed, the benefits of programmatic guaranteed is that the impressions are guaranteed. Campaigns will deliver. That said, the way programmatic guaranteed works is that a publisher literally reserves inventory for the buyer. As a result, it's very similar to a direct buy, but it does travel through programmatic pipes. So there is an option to layer in additional data. That said, it does require a direct supply relationship, and frequently an SSP can broker an introduction, so typically taken care of. However, again, there is the restriction that impressions must be bought. So definitely something to keep in mind when running a programmatic guaranteed campaign. So that's the quick overview of the pros and cons. I'm going to pass it over to Sukai now to talk about the Beeswax private deal workflow.
Thanks, Albert. Hi, everyone. I'm Sukai Chin. I'm the product manager on the app team. We recently released a couple of features that's really relevant to this topic. First is the guarantee line item workflow. So as many of you know, and as Albert mentioned, all impressions must be bought since it's reserved inventory. The publisher is not using this inventory for other buyers. Because of that restriction, traditionally, if you apply too many targeting criterias or other standards, you would actually lose on the impression and cause a low bid rate, which the publisher will lose money on, and will be detrimental to the relationship. So we have designed a new guarantee line item workflow that allows you to save time in setting up the line item as well as preserve high bid rate. The other thing that we introduced recently is a deals page. It is a centralized view to manage all your private deals that you have previously set up for easier targeting in the Beeswax UI. So with that, we also are in the making of a freewheel advanced deal access tool that allows you to book premium freewheel video inventory within Beeswax to save you time, as well as without the need of having direct relationship with freewheel itself. So with that said, I'm going to jump into a quick demo of the previous two tools that we talked about. First one is the guarantee line items. As you are familiar with the Beeswax line item workflow, you can create a new line item anywhere, but we have introduced this new object called guarantee line item that allows you to fill out a much more simplified form and without having to specify targeting, so that you can actually put in half of the information, but all the information is still necessary to book a programmatic guarantee deal. There's more restriction placed, like campaign level settings will be disregarded, and like campaign level or budget won't be respected. This way we can ensure all the impression that's available to you get bid on and ensure a high bid rate to make sure you fully spend your budget as well on this line item. All the targeting you really need is a deal ID. So you can enter the deal IDs as a common separate list in this area, and no other targeting are necessary. That's basically the new PG programmatic guaranteed workflow. Let's now jump into the deal page. So in order to target a deal, you first need to create a new deal within the deal object. So it's a new object, and this is basically keeping track of all the deals that you have in the format of the deal object within Beeswax UI. You can use a name as an identifier, but the key identifier is really the deal ID you got from the SSP. So you need to, of course, enter the exchange handle and then input the deal ID here. And then you can later on use this deal ID for targeting. You can also add metadata information like advertiser, publisher, a deal type to better filter your deals. But you can also use a specific supported format in order to filter out irrelevant deals within targeting. So if you put banner here, it actually won't show up in the targeting for video line items. One really cool feature for this is the CPM override feature. So let me just put in an example. If I apply a CPM override of say 10, and then maybe it has a floor price of 8, you can add a optional start and end date. This CPM override will be applied automatically when you're targeting this deal on a line item. So let's save this and then go to a line item. If you go to targeting, app site, if you've used our UI before, you know that before we offered this common separate list of deals, but now they're in the format, you have both options of showing the list of deal available or the common separated free text input field. So if you're in this view, you can either search for a deal or just selecting from a list. So we just created this deal demo. If you choose to target that, you can see this override of $10 applied here with a floor price of 8. This floor price is only for reporting purpose, but what this $10 override means is that you are actually going to bid $10 even if the flat CPM bid is 1 for this line item. So it acts as an override mechanism for targeting different deals within the same line item. So if you have multiple deals set up all with a different price point, as a lot of guaranteed deal or pre-negotiated deal works, you can actually target them all in within one line item and apply a different price override. Of course, if you don't apply any price override, we'll just apply the default price defined in the overview. And that's just a really convenient feature so that you can consolidate more of your line items into one and save time setting up the campaign, more time strategizing. Those are the two, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention on the deal itself, if you would like to modify the override price, you can actually do it here. And if you have multiple deals, you can apply the same price to all the deals, or just have a different price per deal. That's all fine. We have a really nice mechanism that reminds you if you attempt to bid something that's lower than the floor price, and that's just to ensure that you have the right price setup. Yeah. Cool. So now let's jump into to the product that we're currently in progress. So basically, FreeWill has a lot of advanced inventory that you can access by having a direct relationship with FreeWill. However, with the unique positioning of Beeswax now being part of FreeWill, we have the advantage of directly integrating with FreeWill so that we can tap into their inventory directly for you, and you can go straight to business through through our UI by accessing their inventory. All you need to do is setting up a new deal within Beeswax, and that's ordering a brand new deal instead of keeping a record like I just showed. And it'll give you a forecast of what is the CPM range, what is the available inventory, how much is available inventory. You can put in some targeting criterias, and then you can book the deal with FreeWill and target those deals within your targeting of the line item. This is currently in the works, and we plan to make it available in the second half of 2021. But it's a very exciting feature, and it allows you to get very unique premium inventory through your relationship with Beeswax directly.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sukai. We've been putting in a lot of effort making things simpler to manage private deals, especially as they continue to gain relevance in today's day and age. So appreciate it, and I hope some of our viewers appreciate it too. So we do have a couple questions, and I do want to go over them. So the first question is, in the deals page, will past performance on deals that buyers have connected to be displayed?
Those won't be displayed, but you can pull a report on the query builder based on the deal ID to see the past performance on the deal.
Fantastic.
But I am aware of that need, and then we're evaluating that reporting feature on the deal. More likely, we're going to display it similar to line item performance on the list view of the deals, but more on that to come.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sukai. Second question is just, how is this different from booking a PG deal in DFP? And to answer that question, this is just the other side of the fence. So DFP being Google Ad Manager, that's the sell side aspect of the programmatic deal. And you would have to set it up on the buy side, which is what Beeswax offers, just to connect the dots and ensure that that bid is happening.
Mm-hmm. Just to add that for all the deals that you're entering into the deals page, currently they need to pre-exist with the SSP, and this is only to make sure that they're all out in one place on Beeswax to be reused for targeting, and so that you don't need to keep track of that in a giant spreadsheet. However, you do need to make sure the deal exists and the deal ID is valid in order to use that functionality. With the new feature that we're building, the direct deal advanced access with FreeWill, you are booking something from scratch. So that is the key difference. One, you're keeping a record. The other, you're actually creating the deal.
Fantastic. So one of the questions that came in through the chat is the CPM override seems to have a recommended CPM price. I believe that is actually the floor price that you were looking at. I could be wrong, but I think that's what the other CPM that you're seeing could be.
Mm-hmm. So the CPM override is the CPM that you want to override the basic CPM with. The basic CPM is what you put on the overview page. Let me show real quick. So on any line items, you actually will place a CPM bid. If you have any CPM based bidding strategy, it'll ask you for a basic CPM bid, and this override price is actually just overriding that basic CPM bid with that new price. So when there's a match with this particular deal ID, we'll actually end up bidding 12 instead of 1 specified there. But when it's matching this deal ID, we'll actually bid $8 CPM. So it's not really a recommended CPM. It's more based on your judgment of how much you want to build or any deal terms that you have previously negotiated with the SSP.
Fantastic. Another question is, does the CPM override exist elsewhere, for example, in the open market, so that a certain custom data flag would be present, say in a data augmented bid, where you could override the price with a higher bid, but default to a minimum bid if it is not present? To me, I think we would use a feature that we have called either bid modifiers or bid models to get that done. So what a bid modifier does is when a certain variable, let's say like iOS, is present at the bid request, you can actually set that to bid higher or lower based off of the floor CPM price. To do so, bid models similarly, if a bid modifier modifies based off of one variable, a bid model modifies based off of multiple variables. So you could say if it's somebody is using iOS in New York City, I want to explicitly bid $2, or I want to multiply the price up by 1.2. There's a way to do that. So that is how we would probably accomplish that use case without a CPM override, but just based off of what variables are present in a specific bid. Sukai, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I'm just showing the uh, bid modifier feature that it's also in the works. Um, as you can see, you can create different terms with different criteria, and then you can multiply the bid to adjust what you're bidding based on the targeting criteria.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sukai. And the next question, which is very topical, is how is this different from using a bid modifier to adjust a bid versus using deal overrides? And the reason why you would use a deal override is because typically in a private, or especially in a programmatic guarantee deal, you already have an established CPM that you're going to pay. You've pre-negotiated the price that you're paying for that inventory. And therefore, as a result, you wouldn't actually use a bid modifier to multiply it. You just want to pay that CPM that you've already negotiated.
Yeah.
Anything to add there?
Yeah, another reason is that in the modifiers, we apply a multiplier on the price. It doesn't give you directly what is the price that you have placed, but for deal override, you know the exact CPM you're paying. It's worth noting that this price will also be modified if you have multiplier applied. So if it's matching that deal ID and it's above the fold, it'll actually be multiplied by 1.2 times. Yeah, so it's just a more convenient feature for the deal use case.
Fantastic. One more question just popped in is there an option for bidding just on viewable impressions? Arguably, you could if you worked with a viewability vendor and just set it to only target towards 100% viewable impressions. However, to my knowledge, that would severely limit scale.
Yeah, and also because viewability happen at the point of the impression, right? So if you wait until that point to bid, there'll be lags. And also, if you're only bidding on viewable impressions, the SSP, for us, DSP, at the point of the bid, we like at the point when we receive the bid request, we actually don't know yet if that impression is eventually going to be viewable. Like if you scroll down to below the full placement, not until that point the impression will be viewable, but the impression could already be put up for auction. So I think one of the options you can have is to bid on impressions that are more likely to be viewable. So there are segments that are targeting higher viewability, but as Albert said, that'll significantly reduce the available inventory and increase price. So it's just a judgment that you have to make. But I encourage you to consult with viewability vendors and your CSMs to get a better idea of how to optimize towards better viewability.
Absolutely. Viewability vendors and customer success managers do a great job doing that. Also worth noting that you could also operate within a high viewability environment, such as CTV. Any other questions? Well, that seems to be it for now. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Appreciate your attendance.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you around.